Hi, it's really good to see you again today. We had a great weekend taking a look again at a very challenging and many times very complicated passage of Scripture where some people have always thought for a long time that Paul was contradicting James and James was contradicting Paul. Well, we took a look at how faith and works interplay with one another and what difference that makes in the life of the follower of Christ. Well, I wanted to ask you some things as we've thought about this, we've pulled that passage apart, and you're in your small groups, you've got some questions you can look at to discuss that. But I just want to throw something out there for you and ask you to think about it a little bit. And this maybe wouldn't be what your life was like, but it clearly was my life before I came to know Christ. I used to get so confused over this issue of works and how do I have faith in God and would He accept me? So much so that as a young boy I can remember serving in a church and doing good deeds and trying to work as an altar boy because I really thought, and I remember having this conversation with some other guys during afternoon pickup baseball after school, living in South Philadelphia. For some reason we stopped, we weren't playing ball, and we were having a conversation about heaven and a conversation about hell and how do you know if you're going to one or the other. And I can remember saying, well, in all of my theological wisdom at that age of probably 9 or maybe 10, well, you know, I think God's got this really big scale and He's got it up there in heaven. And if you do a whole lot of good things, they go over here. And if you do bad things, well, they go over here. And, you know, it kind of just depends which way that thing is tilting when you die, whether you go to heaven or to hell. So you need to have a lot of good works. And I don't know where that idea came from. I don't remember my mother or father ever sitting me down, explaining it to me. Maybe I read it in a book somewhere, or maybe I heard it on television or in a movie. But at that young age, I already had this idea that I needed to do things. I mean, I really needed to do some really good things. If God was going to love me, if He was going to overlook the bad things I had done, if He was going to let me come into His heaven. So the question I've got for you is this: where do these ideas come from? Why is it that we are so hardwired as humans to think that we must earn the right to have God love us, that we have to somehow do enough that God will let us come into heaven? Why is it so hard for us to receive as a gift from God His grace that says to us, you don't need to work, I have done the work? What is it about it in us that causes us, as we enter the faith, to struggle with that, like maybe some of you have? And for some of us, even after we've come to faith, we continue to have this struggle, believing I've somehow got to earn my way with God. I have to prove that His love of me is justifiable. Well, think about that a little bit, because we've made a pretty big case this weekend from the Scriptures that if someone has come to faith, well, it is going to show up in life, a life of good works. There should be a change. There should be love working itself out in my life, in my way with other people, in my compassion. But those are things that are different than what I was talking about as a 4th grader in South Philadelphia. Why is it that we struggle with that so much? And what will it look like in your life this week? What would it look like in practical terms if the faith that you and I say we have as followers of Christ were to begin to live itself out? Now, James gave us a couple stories to illustrate that, so talk about that in your groups and think about what it would look like in practical terms for you this week with people that God might bring across your pathway.